now going to call up Diego Luna. Yes, sir. Join us.
So nice to be here. And thank you for organizing this. Like, I got to see it on a big screen.
I know that doesn't always happen, right? I think they should be showing this stuff on the big screen at the El Capitan every week.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Can I just mention one thing?
Yeah.
I just thought we have the director here, sitting there, the director of the episode you just saw.
I'm lucky to have Ariel here. He directed the first 6, I think, right?
See,
The first
2 blocks, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes. I'm so glad you're here. You're gonna help me with some specifics.
Actually, before we get in, I want to ask you, how often do you get to see yourself like this on screen? Do you like watching yourself?
No, I don't. I like this show because it's an ensemble piece. It allows me to see wonderful actors. I don't like seeing myself much. It's not. I do it, like I need to do it, like regularly with everything I do. I see it at least once. But it's not good. It's not good. Doesn't feel. I want to fix things, you know. I want to get it better. My mind changes also. Like you grow, time passes. You see things from a different perspective. You talk to people about it, and the performance stays the same. You know, we change, but that doesn't change. But that being said, I love the possibility of watching Andor on a big screen. I've been going to. I asked today to witness the whole thing, not come at the end, because it's very special. I think the amount of work put behind this show. We're all people that learn to do this by doing films, you know, and we think on a frame where everything matters and where you let audiences decide where to go, you know, a rich frame, and this is a very rich frame that is great when you see it this size and not in a phone or on an iPad, you know.
I'm glad to think this is a massive screen, so cool. Now obviously there's lots to digest in this show, in this episode. Andor, to me, is a very specific type of show. It's a spin-off prequel to a movie who some consider to be, you know, one of the best Star Wars movies ever made, and it has a definite ending for a lot of the characters, including yourself. But before we get to talking more specifically about this, I'll actually go back to the very beginning of Rogue One, actually. And what was the casting process like for that when you were first cast as Cassian Andor? Do you remember?
Yes, I'm never gonna forget. It's not like this happens twice in your life. It was so weird. This was 11 years ago, and I got a phone call that someone wants to see you. We think he is the director of the new Star Wars film. That's the information I had. And I was asked to go on a meeting on a Sunday in LA, and I live in Mexico. So I said, okay, let's go, let's take the meeting. The director is Gareth Edwards, and I go to a restaurant, and he's sitting in an empty restaurant. It's like, it sounds like I'm making up the story, but it's not. He's sitting next to a wall with his computer open, just there by himself. And he's young, feels my age, I don't know, but like, there's a young guy sitting with a computer open. I sit down, the waiter receives me, sits me down in Spanish, says goodbye in Spanish, and I stay with him, and he starts talking non-stop about the possibility of this film and telling me the whole story of a film, and he keeps saying it. So then this guy does this, and then she does this, but he does this, and I go like, what is he talking about? And at the very end, I was like, well, what is this gonna be about? Like, he wants the number of another actor. Like, you know, I always make the joke with Gael that I always thought he was gonna ask me for Gael's phone number. You know? But he goes like, I would like you to play this role. I really didn't like. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know what he meant really, and then he started explaining. I'm here. We're supposed to do a different film with a different tone in the acting. I love your work, and imagine like Star Wars with the actors in a tone close to Tu Mamá También. You know, and I was like, now you sound crazy. But he basically pitched me the whole story and said like, look, I would love to work with you, but now we have to convince everyone else. Do you want to go through it, ride with me? And various auditions happened after that. It was like months to receive the final call. And I went through that process not hoping anything but live through it, you know, because I really, in every step I thought it wasn't going to happen. Like there was no reference for me to say like this makes sense, you know. It was clearly something new in this universe. I think Rogue One, that's what makes Rogue One so special, that it's a very different film, meant to be different, has a definitive ending, you know. It's about characters you've never heard before, you know. You don't see films about them, and yeah, it was quite a process. It was a year and a half of craziness. Also, you can't tell anyone, and you know, I can't tell my family. I flew to London once. They got me through a back door of a hotel to do an audition there. It was bizarre. Yeah.
And then at one point you were asked to reprise the character. This time is a series. Now, how did that process, like even mentally, you know, I don't know if it was Tony or who came to you and said, hey, we want you to come back at this time do a series.
No, first it all started. The other day I was like touring, because you'll see if you like, obviously if you like the show, you'll keep watching and you'll see that we get really close to Rogue One, and actually it ends at the beginning of Rogue One. So many characters from Rogue One will come, and I was doing promotion with Alan Tudyk, who plays K2SO, the droid. And he reminded me that we made jokes on set about something similar, you know, about like revisiting the characters later. And that happened in Rogue One. But that was just us actors making fun of that. We actually were the only ones doing Star Wars and making sure there was no chance to do another one because we die at the end, you know. So it was like, my daughter said on the premiere that like, but you're not coming back. And I go like, no, I was just for a film, and she's like, you don't do this, you know. And all of you, no, this is wrong. Anyway, so I think the first time was 2 years later that I received a call from Lucasfilm, and it was again something bizarre. You know, it was a call to say like, would you be willing to explore the possibility of doing something with the character? You know, it was very vague, and I said yes, of course, let's talk about it. And when we talked, it made complete sense, because I think it is a great like narrative tool to have such a strong and definitive ending of a character and not knowing anything about him. You know, it's beautiful to start building something, to create an arc, an interesting one. I think there was a big chance. All the mystery around Cassian was very helpful to do something in a long format where we could have time. I thought it sounded like a great opportunity. And it was then that Tony Gilroy got involved. And when he came in, he pitched me his idea on the arc he was hoping to draw, and how far we were gonna find him, and that he wanted to end just right into like just a second before Rogue One starts, you know, for the character. And he pitched me that 6 years ago. It's been a long time.
How has your approach to the character changed from the first time you played him back in the movie to how you play him now on the series?
Well, I mean, huge. There is so many there's so many coincidences and there's so many connections that the story we are telling have with the backstory I made myself, because I bring everything, I bring myself into the mix, and my perspective, my context becomes important part of any role I play. There's no way not to, but it was very interesting to see how in tune I was with Tony's perspective on who this guy could be, from the beginning, for me, the idea of being so different, having this different accent, and being in a place where no one knows who he is, where he comes from, and I thought, well, this guy has been forced to move, he's been forced to migrate. Everything has been taken away from him, and that's how I connected with the role. And when you see that story, that backstory in the first season, it has a lot of connection. It has a lot of connection with what I had in mind. But I have to say that there is, the beauty of this show is that it serves the perspective of one person, it serves the perspective and the vision of Tony Gilroy. And he has answers for everything. Really, like nothing is there just because it's cool or because it's gonna create an effect on the audience, Things are very well planned and everything connects, and it's beautiful because when he shows you the world, when he goes deep into the specifics, you suddenly you understand it perfectly, and you are there. And on this second season, he made it even more difficult for us audience, for us performers, for everyone. Like the time jumps, the gaps we have to fill, but it's all there. If you go through the writing, if you go through the lines, everything is there. All the information you need to know to understand perfectly what's going on is there. So.
I think you even see it in the characters' faces. I don't know how many people have seen episodes 4, 5, and 6, which are already out, but
yeah,
you can which it's each 3 episodes jump a year later into the series, getting us closer to Rogue One, and you can see physically obviously there's an emotional difference, but also physically I think some of the characters change as well. And then for you specifically, how do you? I don't know if you shot this show in order. The episodes were shot in order, or were you just jumping around? Because how do you, as an actor, get to the place where you have to be as a character in the first arc, in the second arc, and the third arc?
Well, very, very little sleep, a lot of worry, a lot of notes. I still work with the scripts printed because I need to see it. It gets confusing, definitely, but there is a system, there is a system from the first season that I think we got really good at it, and it's that we break it, production-wise, we break it in 4 blocks. So each block does have a beginning and an end, and it's its own unit, There is a director, a DOP working on it for 3 months, right? Good 3 months of pre-production, then we go on production and you finish that block. And then you start the other one. And sometimes one starts before the other ends, in order to get things on time and to get the ball moving and not stopping. But yes, we did. Answering to the strict order, no, we didn't shoot in chronological order. In fact, the scenes you just saw, the very end of this episode, was the very end for our shoot. It was the way I finished like a kid playing on a cockpit, on the gimbal, It was like going back to being 8 years old and playing. I could take all from my ship. But yeah, and the end of that, the Adria sequence, and all of that was the last days of shooting, and it was quite emotional. You didn't ask that, but I was gonna tell you how much I missed it. No, but it was we shot it out of order. But one thing we do is that we have a good pre-production time before each block, and that's I mean, I'm glad he's not here, so I can say good things about him without ruining anything. But the way Tony collaborates is very special, you know, because in his writing, he involves Luke Hall, who's the set designer, you know, and so he doesn't write about like a cinema. When he is going to write about a cinema and a screening happening in that cinema, he sits with Luke Hall and says, okay, it's going to have 6 people seated like this, it's going to be packed, it's going to be like, you know, a wood in California. So they design the place, and then he goes writing. So when he writes, he can be very specific. The action belongs to a place, and that piece of writing is already a collaboration, right? Then the next step happens, which is like we actors get like close to the material, and we read and we talk to him, and we make questions and we suggest things, and that also kind of like has another. It enriches the page, you know. But then directors take it, and Ari won't let me, like, this is, even though it's television, there's a moment where it belongs to them. You don't have the writer on set, you know, giving notes to the actors. The writer works really hard with the director, gives him all the tools. But when we're executing, it feels like you're in a film set and you're working with a director who's in control of the decisions and who's there. And you as an actor, you know your character very well. It's like doing a film that you've been doing all your life or for 10 years, no? So you also have many of those answers, but there's a feeling of freedom and an opportunity to discover new things because there's already enough, a very rich scene happening. So. But we also shoot in location, and we shoot in real sets that are built, and we interact with real things. So there's accidents that happen that enrich also the process and make it even better, no? So there is a lot of clarity on what we're doing. And then going back to your question that you made like an hour ago, sorry. There is a lot of clarity on what are we doing on set. And Tony's been there through the whole process to the point where he doesn't have to be there, and we all know what his vision is and where we're aiming, and he's then watching dailies in the morning, and by midday you already have a message from him saying if he loved it and why, you know. But there is a sense of like, yeah, of clarity through the whole process that makes this very complex machine actually work.
And you guys shot in real sets, like you said, right? This wasn't the volume or anything like that. You guys were really out in fields.
I think we owe a lot to Rogue One, because Rogue One had that in mind. It was the idea of Rogue One was to honor like the genesis of Star Wars and that filmmaking, that it was very mechanical, very, it was, you know, the droids move and they have a voice and there's an actor behind them, behind the creatures. There's teams sometimes of 2-3 people working on a creature and you're interacting with it. The sets are built, and with the first season we couldn't go in as many locations as we planned because we were shooting on COVID. But on the second season, yes, we went to all of in Valencia. We shot in out of London a lot in England. We shot in Barcelona. Yeah, we traveled a little bit, and then beautiful things happen. You can't control everything, you know, and you're working against the sun, and suddenly feels like filmmaking 20 years ago, you know, that kind of energy.
Tennis balls.
No. I cannot talk about that because that's not out yet. Sorry, I was about to make a spoiler. No.
So Cassian is such a complex character. He's obviously a thief. He's been a prisoner. He's a fashion designer. It's like watching the show should be called like Andor Undercover. But
it's all because of Luthen. And Luthen is a good teacher, a good mentor.
But he does have a complex relationship that you see with Luthen. But he also has a complex relationship with Bix. That's the character played by
Adria Arjona. Yeah.
Adria Arjona, yes. And Cassian is willing to sacrifice a lot, but not when it comes to Bix.
No.
Can you tell me a bit about their relationship?
Yeah. It's I'm gonna, well, you if you have seen the next blog, but those of you who don't, like, the next blog starts a year later, you know, but we just witness what happened there, you know. You can just imagine the conversation Cassian and Bix are gonna have once that ship lands somewhere, no? And what they just went through. So the next time we see them, it's a year later, and we know this has been, you know, take it in, and that's what happens with this structure, you know, that relations are so charged, emotionally charged, and I was looking at the screening at this episode, and it just reminded me how important love becomes in the second season. You know, love in every form, also, like friends, like, and you can't talk revolution if there's no love involved. You know, there's something romantic and naive behind the idea of revolution that comes with that kind of, like, you see what I mean?
Oh, I have a whole question about love and Star Wars, and what you'll see is there's like fascist love, there's rebel love, and what you see, the complex relationships you see, and I might jump ahead by an episode, just hopefully there's no spoilers, but like you see, you know, our imperial couple the way they are. You see Bix and Cassian. You see even Mon Mothma and her husband. They have a very unique relationship. You know, we're at a wedding here, and there's all these different permutations.
And the young boy that just said goodbye, you know, and running in, like, there's
exactly.
everyone, like, what the beauty of this is not just a reminder of what you sacrifice, what you put in aside when you join a rebellion like this, when you join revolution, but it's what needs to be behind, you know, what drives a revolution is that sense of love, of belonging, of family, you know. Those are the things that make you fight, you know. There is laws, there is injustice, there is pain, there is, like, all of that we've seen and we saw a lot in the first season. But all these characters, they are invested emotionally somehow with someone, and that becomes a very important part of the second season, to understand them. And that's again the richness of the writing, that we don't just see people being capable of doing something, we understand why they are doing it, you know. That with a very few scenes you understand why all these people would want something better.
I think love in this show equals hope.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And there's so much love that there's more love in this series than almost in probably the rest of Star Wars.
Well, you said that. You said that, and they laughed. I just witnessed. I think there is these things where, I mean, I couldn't stop laughing about the way they're prepping, you know, dinner at home and getting ready, Cyril and Dedra. Those guys is like, but I was thinking, it's very subtle, the writing of Mr. Gilroy, you know, but he gives hints, he says things, and you were asking about how the relation of Bix and Cassian has changed, and we see them together for 2 seconds. When they hug, we understand, you know, I guess, I hope you understand, but he's trying to call home, and it's just one line, you know, I want to call home, and when he says home, he means Bix, and you know she's on the other side. And he tells you everything. He tells you how the relation evolved. You know, that if you remember the first season, the character Bix would say, like, I mean, you're not here. You always leave, no? and now they call each other home. And I think it's very beautiful because all those layers are there for you to see if you want. If you don't, nothing happens. You still understand the big picture and what they're running away from and what's happening. But all these characters have this opportunity to dream, and to dream about being with someone, and I think that's what's going to make the second season very strong emotionally for viewers.
You're also an executive producer on this season. Probably working with a huge crew. With the level of detail that goes into create a show like this one, you're delving deep into cultures in a way that the movies don't. You created an entire language. You have music. What goes into creating something like that?
Well, first, that's why we did 2 seasons. At the beginning, when Tony pitched it to me, we were talking about doing 5 seasons, like everyone in TV signs for, and we signed the same paper, not knowing what we were doing. Very responsible from us. And then we started doing the first one, and it took a good year to put together, and then COVID hit it, and it was very difficult to shoot, and building all the sets takes a long time, you know. Ferex in the first season is huge, it's a town, you know. For this second season, we have even more planets that we visit, more different scenarios, more speaking parts, therefore the costumes. So the pre-production of this show is really long. We take like 2 years, 2 years and a half to have 1 season ready, you know. And so we said, like, damn, it's going to be impossible to keep this level, the level we had in the first season for 5 seasons. I'll be 60 years old doing this role. It was clear that there was a great opportunity to do one more and be even more ambitious and more meticulous and more specific and more rigorous, you know, in the whole work. And it's not just working with these amazing designers, but it's the system that Sana Wollenberg kind of like designed for us to actually execute this way, you know, and it's very interesting to see how it happens, and how little Tony Gilroy and Sana sleep, because there is always something happening, right? We are shooting because that's what we do, and it's very specific what we have to do as actors, but the pre-production of 2 other blocks is starting, the post-production of what you shot is happening, the shooting of the one happening is going on, and you have the same team for all of it, no? Besides us on set, that we are specific to the block we're shooting. So Michael Wilkinson, I mean, imagine he's the costume designer. That wedding, you know, like the amount of attention put in every dress you see is the same of the one you see on the back, the one Genevieve is wearing in the front. The amount of work that wedding represented for the team, it's long. And the beauty here is that we had the freedom, we had the tools, and they gave us the time, you know, to actually execute this way. I think what the first season brought to us was the certainty that people were celebrating the show for what we wanted to make. For the same reason we wanted to make the show at the beginning, you know, we wanted to do something that was like robust. I mean, like that you could spend a lot of time, you know, finding more and more layers and more details. The work of designs in terms of makeup, hair, and costume, obviously, and sets, it's just the best I've seen in my life, you know. It's like these artists are amazing, and you arrive to a set and you can shoot everywhere. You know, you can move the camera. I mean, they actually did move the camera in that wedding, like till the point they start to get you dizzy. You know, like you can see all of it. All of it works. You know, so it's a beautiful like space for creativity. You know, you as actors, as directors, or you as a photographer to light those scenarios and decide a frame in a place that is so rich. It's been quite an amazing experience.
And the language, because they've created a specific language for this.
And you've seen
the next arc. It also puts you into a different culture with language, so immersive with the language. It feels like you're almost. It has like a French hint to it, almost like you're almost like in, France at wartime.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all of that happens because Tony takes the time to write that and to design that, and there's someone designing everything, with him. But yes, it's time. You know what I think what makes this show different, or at least from the very little experience I have in TV, is that we don't start till it's written. We don't start till it's clear what we're doing, and we don't start till we have everything needed. We were ambitious from beginning to end, and never had to make compromises or give up. Not at all. If something, we were patient and delay things, but I think what was ideas then became something real that we could actually see, feel, touch, and shoot.
I think it pays off incredibly. We're going to end pretty soon, but before we end, I do want to say you were just at Star Wars Celebration in Japan just like a week ago. How was that? I was there too.
You were there too.
Yeah.
You wanna tell me how was yours? How much sake was involved in your?
Too much sake.
No.
But it's a lot. If you go there, it's being in Japan is one thing, and then having Star Wars in Japan is a whole other level. And
it is, and the other thing is that it wasn't just Japan. There was 125 nationalities represented at the event. Can you imagine that? That's the reach of this community. 125 countries made an effort to go to Japan and spend 3-4 days there, and it's truly an event organized by fans and by followers or by, I would say, by a community that has a sense of belonging. It's not it can be compared to any other event I've been to present films or TV. It's very specific, because it's their place, and everyone. Since I think there's a myth of the fans of Star Wars can be very demanding, or it can become kind of like a heavy weight in your shoulders to step into this universe because of the risk of not pleasing them, and I was asked that at the very beginning, and since day one it's been the opposite. And I think where I felt that the most, it was in Japan. You arrive to a place where everyone cares about the story you're telling, everyone feels part of it, everyone is expecting to see it. There is a love connection to what you've been doing for 2 years and a half that makes it feel so special. And you come out, and there is kind of like a very horizontal connection, because the audience, they know what you're talking about. It feels like as if you were talking about their lives, as if you were touching on things that matter as much to them as they matter to you. And that's very, very unique. I've never felt it, but like normally you go out trying to get people's attention, to show them something you've done that no one cares about. No, that's normally what happens when you have to promote a film or a show. And here you arrive and everyone is like, wow, how did it go? You know? Please tell us. I mean, damn, you took 2 years. You know? And you go like, wow, that's cool. That makes you feel you are working in something that matters to someone, and that's already starting in a very successful place, you know.
And you sat there with them as they, for autographs and pictures, and you interacted with them, and I talked to these people, and this is a big deal for them.
And for me too. Like I don't do that like often. For me, it was a big deal too, and being in Japan also was so special, so interesting, and also a place where it's the film history of Japan has influenced Star Wars very much, and cinema, no? So it was quite interesting to be there celebrating Star Wars. It was cool.
Awesome. And on that note, thank you all. That's it.